Welcome to the podcast, Whiskey and a Map. Stories of adventure and expeditions as told by those who live them. I'm your host, Michael Reinhardt. It has been said that many adventures and expeditions started simply with a map and a glass of whiskey. A desire to go and see the world's wild places. You're invited to pull up a chair, pour yourself a glass of your favorite whiskey, and join us as we hear stories from another one of our friends just returned from the field. Welcome to another episode of Whiskey and a Map. Today we're going to meet a friend of mine, Alex Chionetti. Alex is an award-winning journalist, explorer, and filmmaker. He was born in Argentina, studied zoology and ethnology at the Museum of Natural Sciences in Buenos Aires, and later filmmaking at MIT and UCLA. He was a consulting producer for several seasons on Ancient Aliens, and his documentaries have been broadcast on Fox, NBC, A&E, History Channel, and other international networks. He has been a resident researcher at the Smithsonian Institution and was the discoverer of two lost Inca cities in the Andean region. He is a member of the Explorers Club. He is perhaps most famous for his exploration of the Cuevas Las Brujas, a cavern complex in the Amazonian rainforest of Ecuador. These caves contain inexplicable architectural details, and there are, of course, claims of curses and hidden treasures. Alex, welcome, and thanks for taking the time to share your stories with us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
One of our traditions is we always start off at Whiskey and a Map podcast with our guests telling us a good drinking story. Do you have one for us?
Oh, yes. I was, this drinking story was with my departed friend, Andres Fernandez Salvador Sambulvide, who is a fellow explorer who spent 60 years of his life looking for the treasure of the Yanganates. The treasure of Yanganates is the Atahualpa treasure that you were asking me about, El Dorado. Yes, it's part of the Paititi El Dorado tradition, but in Ecuador. And Andres was a kind of a famous character, very colorful. And when I met him, he used to invite all the people to the yacht club of Guayaquil. And he invited me to this nice location, seeing the Guayas River from the window, very lit club. And we started, I'm not a person who drink kind of too much, and I always I couldn't read out Ernest Hemingway in that way. I don't have too much tolerance. He ordered one bottle. He liked to drink whiskey, Johnny Walker. I was drinking. He started to tell me all his life. Adventure was part of my research on the Tajos, and also we drink one glass, two glass, one bottle, come on the second bottle. And he was so excited to tell me all his 60 years of research, but he survived a crash in helicopter, and he spent part of the fortune looking for the treasure, and he never gave up. But he never found it. It used to be all these great adventures. We finish sitting on the floor. We fall both together to the floor after so much drink and adventure. We're so excited. And we lay down for kind of 5 or 10 minutes, laying down in the middle of the yacht club with Andres Fernandez. Rest in peace. He never gave up. He crashed with a helicopter in the middle of the Yanganates, but it's a kind of a rainforest. Very, very rocky, very difficult terrain. And rain, and for weeks. And he was lost of civilization. No one knew where he was. It was not party, and he had to survive for 1 month there with all the few kind of provisions he had there. And finally, some party found it.
What an opportunity to get a chance to talk with him over a drink.
Yes. Yeah, it was a good whiskey. I wish he's still around.
Now, you were born in Argentina.
Yes.
You are a movie and TV producer, but you've also been a lifelong explorer, especially in the area of the Inca region in South America.
Right.
What led you to that?
I was a curious kid. I used to study in the Salesian school, in Buenos Aires, and I like history, I like geography, natural science, and I get so bored with some of the classes. I used to escape from the school, well, not school, go to the second floor where there was a library, and the Salesians have a great library, and I focus in books on exploration and geography, and also the mysteries. What the priest teachers were kind of taught in me were not enough for my satisfaction. And I always liked the natural world. In that escapade from the school, I used to go to the Natural Science Museum. It was in my neighborhood, and to draw kind of dinosaurs and bones. And I was mentored by the director of the museum, who was the grandson of a famous naturalist and founder, who was Ángel Gallardo. And the grandson of Gallardo, he have an association, and me, the friends of the museum. And I spent kind of always taking notes, going attending to the lectures. I was trying to be a forest ranger, but I didn't really like the city. I like the outdoors already. No matter my own first exploration were my patio with a pool and some plants. And I imagine I was exploring Africa or Egypt or other places. I started to write very young. My first book was published when I wrote it when I was between 16 and 18 years old. And one of the stories which generated also that book was the story of an archaeologist who goes to look for a treasure inside of a mine. Already was into the caves and underground world.
In your work and in your explorations, you've actually discovered 2 lost cities. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I know you were curious about that, but also I discovered one in Brazil, what I didn't really publish almost anything. I only published some photos in Facebook, but I concentrate my research since the early 80s in a valley called the Valley of Santa Eulalia. You pass through the Rimac River, you enter this valley. Our friend Manuel Olivares, who guided me in the plateau 30 years, and he gave me the hint to find one of my first cities. And this cities was connected with the legend of the Spaniards' towers, the tower stone formation. The locals said this was a city, and I also about this I did an episode for the series called Destination Truth, and in that time we were expecting to find this kind of very archaeological city, pre-Hispanic one. But the legend was in the valley, they heard these kind of bells, these haunted bells, they were ringing. And that the legend was a lost kind of church. And that church had to come when the Spaniards really crossed the Sierras and they built some towns and cities. From the distance, you see like kind of tower, very confusing. You imagine it was a colonial thing. But the locals couldn't explain. They couldn't tell me it was a kind of a Spanish city with these haunted bells, and wasn't many legends of ghosts, a kind of ghost appearance. And also, you have always the treasure. You see, it's shining some golden light, kind of during the day or during the night, and the people see this kind of lights around this area. And if you follow that light, you will find treasure. No? You will find Spanish doubles. Yeah. I remember the first time I couldn't really go to the place, but I had to take a plane the next day or the same day, and I had to rush to the city. And for several years, I was with intrigue to back always there. No? And finally, I found it. And it was not a colonial city. I was also, I thought it was a natural formation. In the beginning, this is nothing here. But no, what? Was a kind of more underground construction. It was a subterranean construction with crypts. I found several families of skeletons, and these skeletons have the deformation. They were the oblong oval kind of occipital and parietal deformation.
So they had those elongated skulls?
Right, elongated skull with many kind of people are relating to extraterrestrial intervention, no? And also, similar to the Paracas type of crane, but skulls. But these are different. This is not related to the Paracas Pisco area. There are more in the High Sierra, and they use Incas and pre-Incas. They use the deformation of the head, and I leave it there. But the interesting is they were dwelling. Marcahuasi means in Quechua the dobu habitat, the dobu house. The local Aboriginal dwellers built this semi-subterranean kind of housing with two levels. That is in the plateau. But in the other areas surrounding of that valley, we found many other cities, kind of towns. And also I found some walls. Yeah, they were kind of we call pirca walls. This accumulation of the stones making this kind of divided structures, divided kind of housing. But mostly of the upper part was kind of destroyed and remained the underground thing. From get to this crypt, I have to use a rope. Or I tried to pass through one of the tunnels, but it was very narrow. And all this kind of area is interconnected with the tunnels. And these tunnels, sometimes they kind of climb top to the mountain for hundreds of meters. Which we have that similar thing in the central Cusco Valley, no? With pre-Incas, before the Incas, they built towns and religious centers, but we have many layers. And now we start to discover all these cities and megalithic construction, where you have massive stones. They are based in other layers of more older city. And remember, Russo used to tell me, the discoverer of the Marcahuasi Plateau, used to tell me, Alex, the Incas didn't have the knowledge to build this. This had to be from a previous cultural group, previous kind of people. And now, for example, the archaeologists accept Machu Picchu is more older, and we know that 30, 40 years ago. And also, another structures in the Sacred Valley of the Incas, we should call the Sacred Valley of the pre-Incas, at Sacsayhuaman, for example. And they have many layers, older layers, who seems the stones, the massive stones, no were only cut with unknown technology, but they were dissolved. They had a technique to dissolve, to make soft the rock as they could carve it. Yeah.
That's fascinating, because I was reading the biography of Colonel Fawcett.
Oh, yes.
And he described a plant that he came across in the Amazon would dissolve rocks.
Right. Fawcett is one of those. Yes.
And I've always wondered, I haven't seen anybody reference that plant or that phenomenon before, but Fawcett was a skilled and observer of nature, and I always wondered if the Inca and those folks there took advantage of that plant.
Sure, he was a big observer. As you could see his book.
Let me take you to that time where you finally come back to that valley and you find these structures in the subterranean crypt. When you went down there and you saw these remains with the elongated skulls, what did it feel like? What were you thinking at the time?
Oh, I was very kind of happy, and I was intrigued. I hope I have more kind of time, and also I have a colleague. I was alone in the discovery. My other second discovery, who is an older, more city, and as I told you before, I was the first time another local from the town brought me to the area. No, And we have to cross terraces, and this looks very, very old. We're supposed to go to a kind of also site with mummies, but we saw mummies in one of the crypts, and I found these terraces who are also pre-Incas. I calculate a couple thousand years ago or more, and they have this kind of also very minor constructions. Yeah,
What is it like to see something that people haven't seen for 1,000 years?
it's the same sensation as when I was writing that first short stories, where there was this archaeologist dressed in khaki and hat, sweating and biting the dust, crawling on the, not trying to not touch too many spiders hanging between the rocks. Yeah, that area have more spiders than snakes. The snakes are in the Amazon. Yeah, but that is, I don't know, you connect with our planet, who is, we have a human factor very ancient. We are very old. We are all species. Chronologies of history and prehistory are totally off. Yeah, we are kind of, and that it was proved, for example, with the Caral, the city of Caral, who's the older city. Coming back to the dissolving stones, you said that tradition. I read the book of Fawcett when I was a teenager, but I didn't remember when my trips to Peru, and I was intrigued already in my first expeditions in the 80s. The people told me about the secret of the dissolving come from a bird. And I have written the species of bird. It's a kind of a very fragile black bird who lives in the Andes. And the bird can dissolve this kind of hair. Searching, for example, I met one of the directors of the museum, La Correra, who is a very prestigious museum in Lima. He said, "Oh, I have that nest of the bird with the fiber." And I was insisting. I called him many times when I was, I cannot find it. I don't know if he was bullshitting me or not, but I went to look for that hair. Also, in my last trip to Cusco, I found a guide who is part of the Sacsayhuaman complex. He's supposed to connect me with another fellow friend who already have a sample, but nobody really brought to the lab this kind of hair to analyze to see if that produce a chemical. For example, it's another legend. They really isolate this liquid, and they used to put it in jars, but they have to be a stone jar. But if you put it in a regular ceramic kind of jar, when they were bringing down the valley, they make a hole, and they discover in that way. They discover, so when we get that kind of I don't know what we're trying to experiment, but the liquid produce a big hole. So it's a dissolving, no?
Alex, let me switch gears on you. From all of your travels, what is the strangest or most unusual thing you ever witnessed?
Well, there are many. Well, for me, was trying to kind of prove some artificiality in the cave of Tajos. I spent 30 years in the making, and after I saw a picture called the cornerstone. But the geologists who analyzed the cave originally in the 70s, they took pictures and films. They didn't really prospect in the cave with enough, including the Ecuadorian Army and further expeditions, previous to mine and after mine. But, for example, my expeditions between 2006 and 2010, finally I found that cornerstone with the proof part of the cave was lifted to make a passage and to set a megalithic block. And that reminded me the blocks in Baalbek, for example, that amazing 500 kind of thousand of tons. Impossible today to really carve, no? But in minor scale, you found it in the Andes and in the Amazon. That was Fawcett was looking for this megalithic structure, no? all the official academic, they say, oh, he was not really advanced cities in the Amazonian Brazilian side, Bolivia or Brazil, but they were wrong. He was not too far. Tiahuanaco have this unexplained kind of cutting of rocks, and that is in Bolivia. And if you go more to the jungle, of course, Brazil is a big kind of big plains and with megalithic structures. But you have these flashbacks. For example, you were talking about El Dorado. El Dorado is the Spaniards look a big city carved in gold, no? The Cibola, the lost cities of Cibola, more between the southwest of America to Patagonia. And this El Dorado legend was kind of repeating in many sides, but the rumor was multiplying. But the Spaniards never found this kind of totally golden city. But yes, they went to Cajamarca and they took prisoner Atahualpa. And Atahualpa knows there were gold all over. Cusco was all gold over. There were many real stories, no? So Dorado was not one thing, but it was scattered many satellite kind of structures, no?
Now, you're best known for your expeditions to the Taos Caves.
Uh-huh. Yes.
How did you first learn of them, and why did that pique your curiosity to spend 30 years exploring it?
Julio Goyen Aguado, rest in peace. Yeah, Julio died in an expedition in the Argentinian Andes. I spent a couple decades of friendship with him, and he was a very private man, very humble, and he was the director of the Center of Speleology. And he, through a friend of mine, said he called, said, I want to meet this guy who wrote this book, but he's mentioned me in his late 70s when I met him, and we turned friends. I said, before that meeting, 3 years before, it was the person who descended with Neil Armstrong, first man on the moon, to the Cape of Tajas, where it was a big expedition, 1976, to the Tajas. And the organizer of the expedition, Stanley Hall, who was a Scottish, nice, crazy, also dreamer and explorer, decided to put Julio in charge of that part with the expectation he was going to guide the expedition to the chamber who's supposed to hide the legendary metal library. The metal library is a kind of similar to El Dorado legend. It's very similar, but it's echoing many other legends coming in the Andes, no? In all South American lore, regarding to kind of lost knowledge and lost treasure. And Julio was kind of a friend, kind of a sidekick of another explorer who is the real discoverer of the Tajas Cave. His name was Janos Morix. He was a Hungarian who immigrated to Argentina. And when he was in Argentina, he kind of mentored Julio. He was different of age, but they were looking for the same kind of knowledge. Julio was also a person who was researching that ancient past, the origins of the kind of the South American peoples, where they come from, the migrations, the origin of cultures in America. So Morris was coming from Europe with a lot of knowledge of the origin of the Indo-Europeans and the Magyars coming from Hungary. And that the two guys start to also research the underground world. And Julio was a speleologist. And after our meeting, I said, well, you have to explore the cave of Las Brujas. The Cave of Brujas is a very deep cave in the Andes of the Mendoza province in Argentina. And all the members of the group, we used to have that kind of initiation in that cave. I said, well, you want to go to know more about the Tajas Caves, you have to first prove your mankind, right? Your malehood, we could say.
And in Spanish, that's the Caves of the Witches?
Yes, Cave of the Witches. Oh, but that area is a very kind of traditional area. They said the people women, they were used to have the tradition of to be witches in that valley. And that valley is a place where you have a lot of counting apparitions, and you have the lady in white, the lady in black in the roads. You have many people who run parallel to your pickups on your trucks, and ghost apparitions, and lots of missing time, conscience, and thing.
I take it you passed the initiation going into the
Right.
Cave of the Witches?
Yes. The other important things, this cave called the Cuangos Cave in the Tajos lore, also in the Morona Santiago region of Ecuador, is the one, the rumor was a kind of an underground construction. And the underground construction is where this cornerstone is, and this kind of polished stone blocks and megalithic stones are around in the inner caves. And this, for get there, you have to descend almost 1 mile below earth. And when you enter, you found this kind of gate, a stone gate with level of walls and bricks and polished ducts. They have a very kind of unusual features, and these features, for myself, I'm not a geologist, but for some geologists, cannot be explained by fluvial or water erosion. But this giant megalithic block is kind of separating. Looks like they use some kind of a drilling technique. The Tajos Caves, they are named the name of the birds. They're oil birds who give origin to the name of the caves. No?
Yeah, these birds are unusual, aren't they? They almost mimic bats.
Yes, no, there are blind birds. They use the ecosonar in that way. Yeah, they mimic bats. They have some natural kind of organic constitution similar to the bats using the ecosonar. Yeah, and it's you see flying over your head, and they never touch it. They pass through over your head, and they're very kind of, and you perceive also the sonar, the sound. They do this kind of tack tack sound, and these are nocturnal birds. They are more awake during the night. They produce this strident, vibrating song, and they go at night to pick up some seeds, these pepas, these big seeds, who bring it to the cave. And that is the reason all the soil of the cave have a forest. Great. You have a kind of, for some moments you feel you are in the Jules Verne voyage to the center of the earth, where you have this old fluorescent forest inside.
Now, the area is surrounded by, as you mentioned, the local indigenous people. Do you pronounce it the Shuar?
Sure.
Is that how you pronounce it? When you went there on especially your first expeditions, what was your impression of those people there, and what were they like?
The Shuar groups, we used to call it Jibaros. As you remember, the Jibaros in the old Hollywood movies, they used to hunt the intruders and shrink the head of the enemies. So they have the technique to make a reduction of the animals and also of the enemies. They were head hunters, yeah. You find out two groups of head hunters, the Papua New Guinea, right? And you find in that part of the Micronesia, and you found it in Ecuador.
So the Shuar were headhunters.
Right. Yes, headhunters of the Amazons, they used to call it. It's an ethnic group in the edge of the Amazon and the beginning of the eyebrow of the jungle. It's a culture connected with hunting animals and using the psychotropic plants, as healing and also as a religious thing. And they believe in a god called Arutan. And also in the legend, that is very important, the cave of Talos. But in the main legends of the Shuars, there are two brothers. They always have in the genesis of cultures, including the pre-Inca culture, the two brothers who come from a cave, and surface. And these two brothers were chasing a lion, a puma. And they went inside of the cave and they get trapped, and finally they escape. And also We have intervention of the birds too. And that was a mythical. So the cave is important in the mythical genesis of the Shuars, the Jibaros. And the Jibaros, it's a different ethical thing. They were trying to be Christianized by the Jesuits, the Franciscans, from the Salesians for many years, and they never couldn't really conquer their sense, no? No matter, you could find many Christian churches and faithful people, but they live in this kind of intersection between the recent past and the modern past. So they are very nationalistic and trying to bind to their tradition. That keep it alive. The Shuar keeping this tradition of connection with nature more than other ones. Yeah, and they are very kind of unconquered in a certain way, no? And they suffer so much with the oil companies contaminating the area.
You mentioned earlier 2007. In 2007, you almost didn't come back. What happened?
What happened? I did a mistake to use one guide who was a previous guide, no Indian guy. They call colonos, the one who are more fair-skinned. They call the colonos. They're coming from outside, colonization. And this guy left a bad reputation since the 70s, 80s. And the lawyer of Morix, Gerardo Peña Mateus, introduced me to him. I said, "Oh, but I was looking a guy to bring." And he said, "Oh, the only one," and I trust him. I said, "I want to introduce to this person." And this person was already in the expeditions of 69. 69 was the first expedition who discovered this underground kind of kingdom of geological anomalies. And the cave of Cuangos. There are 100 caves of Tajos in this area, for instance, 100 caves. And we know we have been exploring only six or seven of them. There are more, kind of another 100 to really explore. And this guy, after I call it the three rivers, the three circles of hell, where you have to, if you do it in ground, and I didn't decide to use the river, and I said, let's go to ground. And through the ground, you have to go through the jungle and cross hanging bridges who are destroyed, or most of the bridges. And I was found impossible to cross, and I have to find more detours. And I have, this was last chance to, after I was trying to get the goal during 6 months. I was 6 months in and out of the jungle. And after I crossed it from the Namangosa, you continue to the jungle. When we get to this place called La Union, La Union is the union of the two rivers, the Santiago and Namangosa, before you get to the next circle. And when I was there, I don't know, we were trying to get the permission. I have kind of some permission from the capital, from the unions. For the Union of the Indians, I have a card, and I was kind of in the union. I found a guy who was a shaman, who I explained the situation, and I said, well, you could give a hand, but also my group, some kind of support from the special forces of, we could call the special police. And these people were very interested in my goal. And they trained me also for several weeks to back to the caves. You know, it was very intensive training with all type of kind of techniques of rappel and surviving. And that when we were kind of stuck, I had my horses, my burros with the generator. I was crossing a generator to illuminate the cave, to film the cave. I have a Yamaha generator, and it was almost as the old expeditions, no? It was not easy to cross with the burro packet. Yeah, to do it to ground, it looked like a Werner Herzog Fitzcarraldo story, right? More or less. After we went one day and night, and finally the shaman said, oh, let me talk with another. Well, we have to cross another bridge. We have this called Teravita, who's a poly with a basket, right? And I tried once, and I sent as an emissary my group of rescue and intervention to negotiate. But when I saw the other side, they were coming with rifles. On the other side of the river, they were coming with rifles. And so this is just not going to be good. Yeah. And in that interim, my guide decided to abandon us. He said, no, I perceive something. And it's, when I mentioned his name, some other people looks like they ran to call another town. I said, oh, this guy returned to this area. And it's that he perceived something was happening. Also, my group, my special force group, want to lead me there. They start to be afraid, believe it or not. I said, I'm not leaving this place after 25 years and 6 months, 25 years, 6 months. I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. And also, in the next 10 days later, my visa was expiring, and I said, I'm not going to renew. I have to return to the States. So I will continue. You guys, my team, you get back. I will jump to I will ask to the locals to descend me with the ropes. And the locals, they don't need too much paraphernalia. They don't need too much kind of gear. They descend with vine ropes, and they used to descend with long sticks and vines. Finally, the shaman, he went with thing, they negotiate, and I said, okay, if you help me, I will donate my generator as you could illuminate your town. But the town of Pangos didn't have any electricity since history. And when I get there, I was in a school and was very, very kind of tender people. No? They were very nice. Unfortunately, I couldn't find any elder who remember my friends who went there before. And I was expecting they would remember. One elder man remember more. Finally, we cross that bridge, and I get to the town, and I found another two guys who were, one was the teacher of the school there, and they accept my proposal. Unfortunately, the night before it started to rain. The road to the cave was several miles, was mud to the thing. All our rubber boots, were getting stuck in the mud. We descend. It was so hard to film when the water was coming. The water was coming inside of my camera. I have to dry. The lenses get very blurry for the water dropping from the mouth of the cave. But the greatest experience is when you descend to the wound of the air. That descending is amazing. It's a kind of, you go to the Mother Earth, And when it's surrounded by the birds, kind of quicken and producing all the striding, hundreds of birds welcome you, And it was it's back to the past, 2,000 years in the past. And when we get to the ground, we descend all the gear, the lights, the generator, and inside we want to explore this kind of the first section, but you have to descend another section with several kind of meters, a lot of feet. We have to build another kind of pulley system to descend the second gradient. After that, we are more close of the threshold. This gate used to be called the Fondaniken Gate. Now was rebaptized Janos Morix Gate. Wow, two famous scoundrels. And there I film and analyze. I went to another upper gallery who got this very narrow kind of formation ducts. I found very strange kind of rock who have the size, have the incrustation of the silhouette, the shape of the kind of a hammer of a crab, a kind of a connecting things. You found it in another construction in the Andes to hold many blocks. I was trying to look the cornerstone, but in the front of the gate, I couldn't find it. Oh my, I come for the cornerstone. And we crossed to the other gallery called the Stanley Hall Gallery. And was the bigger gallery. And within the center have all this kind of red kind of loaf, whose cutting have several precision cutting. I was cut with laser precision. No? So we were very exhausted, but we have permission only to be 24 hours. That was the concilium, the tribe concilium give you. In that time, I don't know, my team started to feel some strange, my special forces team, and said, well, I'm not leaving until, again, I don't leaving until I found my cornerstone, And also to film it, I need the light, but in the sunrise, some light penetrate from the roof. Don't forget, we are kind of 1.5 miles below Earth. Finally, in the way back, I found the cornerstone. Yeah, I took pictures and that I filmed it. They took several hours to return to the surface, but you have to pull it back. We have to bring all the gear and the pull, and finally we make it in the slippery entrance. We make it back. We separated from my lead group. I said, well, I'm going to go, but we have a timing to be picked up by a truck coming from the capital to pick up but there's no transportation in the intersection of the near road. After you cross back the 3 circles of hell as I go. Yeah, but coming back to Namangosa. And my friend, kind of the head Claver, who was the older with more, what is called, position in the team, in range, and he went. And the other 2, they were 3, 4 with me. My team was 4. And we start to go. We have to pack. Looks like when they went back, I found a young kid who I met before and said, oh, they capture your guide, your team member. And it was kind of captured and kidnapped. They keep it kind of ransom. They keep it kind of in this, the same people what I was mentioning, where they come with the rifles to the border of the river, they keep it in. And I said, they're looking, a group coming from another town, they're coming to kill you guys. You have to really, my mother sent us to kind of warn you, and please come, you have to hide. And finally, so what happened? We continue crossing. Finally, I met the mother, was a Shuar Indian, but she was a Christian. She was a Christian lady. I discovered later she was Christian. And I said, well, they're coming, but they capture your friend, and I don't know what happened, but it looks like your previous guy, they don't like it, that Lucho. And we went, and we kind of, she gave us kind of a hat, very small hat. Yeah, the size of a big bat, and we had to hide there next to her cabin. I said, oh my God. And my teams of the Special Force, they start to get very upset with me. And one of them, he wanted to kind of, he started to be very aggressive. Finally, Clever was released, and he joined us. Because I was liberated. And I said, but we have to hide. But these guys, there are 10 henchmen coming from us. Yeah. We hide in the cabin, and I said, what will we do? Well, we have to make a plan. Let's try to hold it. They never told me they have guns, my team. They have guns. I said, well, I don't want any spill of blood here. I don't want any responsibility of anyone. This is my expedition. It took me 25 years and 6 months of my life. No, please not. Yeah. And I feel so embarrassed. Yeah. And,
so you're hiding in the hut,
right?
And she's protecting you. What happens next?
No, she's next door with another cabin, another hut, and with babies. And it's night, and we hear shots in the air, and also flames. They have torches. I said, oh my God. The people there, when they are drunk on the ground, many other cases, they burn the people also alive. They turn fire. For example, I discovered a story of a guy who was dealing with the Sansas. he was selling, and it's illegal. When the other Indians discovered he was betraying their tradition of don't traffic with that, they turned him in a tree and they burned him alive. That was not too many months before my expedition. And I said, "Oh my God!" And so we smell the of the torches smell, and the people next to the cabin, the lady and the kids were crying. The members of my team, one of the guy was a kind of a sergeant. He started to get mad. I said, "Well, we are going to die for your fault." And he was kicking me. I said, "If I don't kill by the Indians, I get killed by the cops." Yeah, he was kicking me, and kind of what happened is next is I was praying. I said, "Oh, Father Crespi." Father Crespi was the other kind of point in the story. Was a Salesian father who had a big collection of artifacts in Cuenca, the third big city in Ecuador. And that he had collection of metal scrolls and some of the legends and the confusion for von Däniken in his book. And also the people in the area were still remembering one Swiss guy, he made millionaire kind of with the gold of the god lying about the story. And they were still remembered. So there was so much resentment, the people who come to take the treasure and make money with. And he make gold, not finding gold. He make coming back to the story when we are in the hood. I said, "Please don't nobody get hurt." I was praying for that, but I was calm. My team was more nervous than me. I was totally calm, but at least I conquered the cave after so many years. Did you feel as you conquered the Everest? Yeah. But before me were not expedition, was only the expedition of 76 with Armstrong and Holly Hall. In that gap were not. I was the first, and I was connected with the real founders. Yeah. Now, today, everybody talk about the cave, but I make the mistake to put that I did an episode for Ancient Aliens in 2010 for that series, and I put that cave and also the Marcahuasi Plateau on the spot. Yeah, but nobody cared. Now everybody's doing. Coming back in the same moment, I said, "Well, if we make it alive to the sunrise, we want to make it by escape. We have to drop a lot of equipment I have. Also, I have a big metal detector. I have to leave it behind. My samples of rocks I have to leave behind. Mysterious one of my tapes disappeared, who have the recording of the corner stone, but thanks God I took a picture, but I lost the tape."
Well, so how did you escape the hut?
Suddenly, it was no more sound. It was shut into the air. Was kind of silent. The night came. We didn't sleep anything. I said it was around 5 o'clock in the morning or 4:30. But so well, let's go. And we kind of go behind. So it looks like the guys were asleep, And they said, "Oh, if there are drunks, they're going to fall asleep anymore." We use a ditch to run, and it's the group of intervention and rescue, my special forces guys said, "Well, one is going in front of Alex, the other in the back of Alex to protect him." But this could be, they were responsible for my life, But they have to bring me life, and they were good in that level. But they were armed. I said they had a couple automatic pistols, and we ran. I said, "Well, you have to run as you never run." With my backpack, with my camera, with the tapes, with my photo camera, my gear, as we turned to run. The ground was not too slippery as 2 nights before. And the Christian lady, and the son decided to escort us. She had to go to another town. I said, "Well, I will go." But she knows the roads, And finally, we get to the bridge of hell, but it was the pulley thing. In that moment, when we were there, we saw kind of a swarm of darts coming. So where are they coming from? There were a dozen of big spears. Unfortunately, I used to have it. I lost it in so many of my movies, And they get too close of us. I said, "Well, who is shooting this kind of darts in the middle of the night?" I don't know who was. And nothing. We didn't hear anything. And let's cross. And we cross with a basket. We cross it again and back. And when we get to the other point, we decide. My team want to destroy it. So, no, don't destroy all the bridge, but these people need transportation. And he tied it. He tied it on the way the other side, they couldn't pull it back. But it's the people who throw the darts will be the same of things, or was another people who were there kind of waiting for us. But when we crossed to the other side, we found the reason why they want to kill. I found a complete garbage disposal of 10 or 15 wine containers, brand kind of used. They were drinking this cheap wine.
So the men with guns and torches then decided to start drinking, and that's how you made your escape, is when they passed out?
Right. But I grabbed one of the, I have my arrow with me to prove it, but they still use arrows too, and they use spears. Yeah, it's a kind of, they use long spears. And they use the bodoquera with the darts, with the curare darts. So they use it with the monkeys still. They could use it with you too. Yeah, I know many cases of the Achuars and the Guaranis. They used to use it with the missionary people. Yeah. After we continue running, we get to the town, and we're waiting for the bus.
Well, that's a harrowing experience. First having...
I don't deserve it, yes.
Well, having people first with torches and rifles coming after you, and then crossing the river with spears and darts being shot at you.
Yeah. No, they were small. Yeah, arrows. It's the smallest.
Arrows.
This side, yes.
Well, Alex, this has been a fascinating conversation. For folks who want to follow your exploits, how would we do that?
No, you could look for me in Facebook with my name. You could find me in Twitter with my name.
And the book that you wrote about these exploits, Mysteries of the Tayos Caves.
Well, thank you very much. And yeah, I'm looking to share with you more discoveries.
Fascinating.
Thank you.
All right, Alex, we'll see you down the road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for joining us. We'll see you down the road when we get together again, share a glass of whiskey, and hear more stories of adventure as told by those who live them. Until then, check us out at michaeljreinhardt.com, where you'll find more of my work as an adventure photojournalist. Photos, videos, and articles of interesting people, mysterious places, and exotic cultures from the wild places of the world.